Is your organization finding it difficult to achieve compliance and scale its security posture? As G2's highest rated cloud compliance software, Drata streamlines your SOC 2, ISO 27001, PCI DSS, HIPAA, GDPR, and many more security frameworks, and provides continuous 24-hour control monitoring so you can focus on scaling securely. Drata is also the only compliance automation platform with a private tenant database. That's like having your cake and securing it too. Listeners of Business Security Weekly get 10% off Drata by visiting securityweekly.com/Drata. That's DRATA.
Cybercriminals are working overtime. Last year in the fourth quarter alone, phishing attacks disguised as COVID testing information increased by 521%. Barracuda has identified 13 types of email threats and how cybercriminals use them to steal money from your company or personal information from your employees and customers. Find out about the 13 email threat types and how Barracuda can provide complete email protection for your teams, your customers, and your reputation. Get your free ebook at securityweekly.com/Barracuda. That's securityweekly.com/Barracuda.
The shift to remote and hybrid work over the past 2 years has accelerated application development on cloud infrastructure. However, securing these new assets has lagged behind. Qualys CloudView, the next generation cloud security posture management, delivers an end-to-end multi-cloud security and compliance solution encompassing the entire application lifecycle from build to runtime. CloudView enables enterprises to assess their cloud security and compliance posture, identify risks and gaps, auto-remediate issues, proactively enforce best practices, improve compliance and audits rapidly and efficiently. Identify your most vulnerable cloud assets by visiting securityweekly.com/Qualys. Welcome back to Business Security Weekly. I am your host, Matt Alderman, joined by Josh Marpet, John Kinsella, and Tyler Robinson. Don't forget to check out our library of on-demand webcasts and technical trainings by visiting securityweekly.com/on-demand. Also, don't miss any of your favorite Security Weekly content. Visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to any of our podcast feeds and have all new episodes downloaded right to your phone. You can also join our mailing list, Discord server, and follow us on social media and our streaming platforms. All right, gentlemen, articles for the week. I started with this fake CISO's profiles on LinkedIn targeting Fortune 500s. Now, this is an interesting story where not only are these profiles being set up on LinkedIn, they're actually showing up on Google searches as valid CISOs, higher than the real CISOs when some of this stuff is searched. Little scary that anybody can just set up their own LinkedIn profile and become a CISO of whoever.
I'm surprised this is new news to some of these places. Like this, we've been doing this for quite a while. Like the fact that you can get it search indexed and put at the top of the list. In fact, these ones are really bad. There's not that much history on them. There's no recommendations. Right. You connect with a good CISO network and just add yourself to the groups, and then you start to get reviews from other CISOs, and it really starts to look legit. So, it is scary.
On LinkedIn, remember, it's all self attestation.
It's Wikipedia.
So how many companies have you had? How many companies actually check their employees associated with that company record on LinkedIn and check and make sure they're all actual employees? Because I've been in 3-person companies, no joke, where you're like, why are there 5 people listed on LinkedIn when you do that random check? And you're like, who are these 2? I mean, it's not hard. Also in groups, I own LinkedIn groups from pen tests done almost a decade ago and years ago. And I just never bothered to give them up. And they're now actively used by those companies, sincerely actively done. But I've never bothered to give them up. Nobody's ever asked me. Nobody ever looked, but I own the groups.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting to me on it real quick is what are people doing with this, right? Mm-hmm. So, okay, cool. The profiles are there. Are these being actively, or how are these being actively used to do? You can guess it's a social engineering attack, but the ones that remind me of, I know, big shock, huh? The one that reminded me of is a lot of the crypto stuff I see, where for me it'll be like some fairly attractive brand new user with, maybe 25 users and suddenly wants to connect to me. And it's like, and to connect next and go start talking about crypto. And it's like, no. So, But I'm sort of curious, what are they using? Are they just building these up with intent to then do something, or what's the bigger picture behind them?
Actually, I have an answer on Reddit MSP today. Not a joke. Today, I saw this, and I'm like, oh, wow, this links perfectly. There was a whole thread about if you sign up a new person, like if we onboarded Tyler into our MSP, okay, I'm just picking on you, Tyler. Within hours to days, he would start getting text messages and emails from the CEO or an executive saying, hey, I need a favor, do this, buy a gift card, whatever, the standard BS stuff. And it's like, and they're going to the point that these MSPs are starting to investigate this. Like, is it just LinkedIn and social media announcements? Like, oh, hey, I just joined this company. Did they create that CISO on LinkedIn for this purpose? There's also at least one MSP that's like, no, I just have to create an O365 account that's linked to no person. It's a fake name. And all of a sudden it starts getting through the Microsoft phone system. It starts getting the text messages, the emails. Hey, it's the CEO. Can you do this for me? And so it's not just for crypto and things like that. Tyler, what are you doing?
No, I
When
mean,
he smirks like that, he's doing something.
He's creating.
it is valid. That is how it's working. The botnets are leveraging this. There's, it depends on which botnet, depends on which group, depends on what the persona is and how well established it is. If you have some that are very well established in certain networks that give you intel, you can see who's using certain technologies. You can keep track of what other director levels or executive levels are doing. It's almost like having a seat at the board because of how much gets posted in some of these private groups and or at the level for the company. So really depends on if it's a recon or intel gathering or it's leveraged for scraping, all the people in the company. You have to be a first or second level connection to get full details and get notifications from the company. So you get at that level, then you start to get recon and intel. And then you're right. The other thing is people don't realize that LinkedIn is a Microsoft-owned company. LinkedIn has the ability to sign into O365 and gain insights because of the connection between LinkedIn. There's an option within inside your Azure AD tenancy that says allow LinkedIn single sign-on authentications. So there's some interesting things that you can do with that as well.
I forgot that. That's a good point.
Plus, if you're a CISO, if you're a fake CISO, and you're out trying to connect to other CISOs, you look valid, you get a connection. But guess what? Now I know your personal email account. I can start getting information and data about you through those connections. I guarantee you this is going to be used in some sort of social engineering attack. It's
take it one step further and don't even think about just social engineering. Think about the ability to disseminate information, right? Like you look at the election campaign year of 2016 or 2020, and you look at the networks and the different groups in which were pushing that information around, what country was doing it. It was both sides of the country, and that was disinformation from different threat actor groups trying to push that down. So you get that to the highest level, and you're inside those groups as a CISO. That allows you a dissemination platform and a channel.
Yep. Next story. What CISOs want to see from NIST's impending zero trust guidelines. I assume budget would be one of those?
Oh yeah, that's definitely going to happen.
Where? Like, I haven't seen the legislation come across with dollars in it yet, but it's going to have to if people want these zero trust guidelines implemented.
No, it's not. No, it doesn't have to come with a single dollar, because what they're doing is they're mandating through the executive orders 140728, I think, don't quote me on that, that software bill of materials, zero trust, various other things are absolutely mandated. CMMC was supposed to be funded by the government, except they went, oh, sorry, we weren't supposed to say that. Like literally, this is going to cost millions of dollars to a certain extent, but it's going to drag most companies into a zero trust model. And frankly, honestly, don't we want that?
We do, but here's the challenge, right? And this is why everybody
John Kinsella doesn't want it.
everybody wants to figure this out. Like, yeah, the mandate's there. The timelines are there, but there's no realistic way for organizations to get there with the current budgets and the current systems that they have. This is a major overhaul of our federal agencies, right? Now, granted, we're going to drag some of these agencies kicking and screaming to get there, and we're probably going to pull other parts of the commercial environment along with it, right? this is not something you just say it's going to be done by the end of the year, because it's not, right? Like there's just and what I don't like about the way some of this has transpired is that there is no easy answer to fixing cybersecurity in the government. There isn't. It doesn't matter whether there's an executive order or not. We have to look at our systems. We have to look at our budget allocations and really identify how do we actually solve this. And I don't think anybody's actually outside of, yes, I'm going to create an executive order. I don't see enough wood behind that arrow to actually make an impact yet.
So I think and yes, I said, I will say on record, John Kinsella thinks that high level hand waving of zero trust is unfortunately not going to get us there. And it's when
Communist.
when these first came out earlier this year, and you look through the details, you're like, no one's ever going to meet the timelines on these, and that's what it says in this article. It's like, they phrased it a little bit nicer, but it's basically 2024. They're not going to meet it. I think what's great about it is that it's getting people thinking about it, having this conversation, and maybe starting to scrounge through the proverbial pillows and the couch to figure out where to go get the budget for this. But a lot of the zero trust people like to say zero trust is a concept, not a product you buy off the shelf. Okay, so that means all these different organizations now have to go and figure this stuff out themselves. So they're all going to come up with something different.
It's worse. John, it's worse. They don't even know what zero trust is. We're just recently coming to a definition of zero trust, much less how to implement it or how to build it or what products to use to fill in the jigsaw puzzle pieces of what it is and everything else. So until we can come to an industry standard definition of zero trust, which we're getting there, but it's going to take a little while.
Yeah. I mean, we did an interview on this show about a month ago where we basically zero trust is not a SKU. It's not even 5 SKUs, right? I think NIST has done great work in building out the zero trust architecture and identifying the core pillars of what you need to address from a zero trust perspective. It's not even 5 SKUs. You can't go out and buy one identity player, one data player, one endpoint player, one app player. Like, you can't go buy one of each of those and be like, oh, I'm done with zero trust. There's no way, right? And so what I think this article is really talking about is NIST, continue building out the architecture, continue to build out guidelines. You're going to have to create multiple tiers of this, crawl, walk, run, across these tiers, similar to what we did with 853, right? Different tiers based on different risk profiles of the organization. They're going to have to do something very similar. Otherwise, it's going to be too daunting of a task for these agencies to implement.
Yeah.
Is zero trust really anything more than what we've been saying the last 20 years? I mean, it was defense in depth before that. It was a CI triad before that. It was security best practices before that. It's all the exact same core fundamentals. Like, why do we have to relabel it?
Yes and no. The thing that we've been saying for defense in depth, the thing we've been saying, like you said, for 20 years was, protect your perimeter, build multiple perimeters. In this case, it's similar. It's similar. Don't get me wrong, Tyler. You're 100% on target there. It's every single component of your entire infrastructure, your entire world has its own perimeter. Okay. Yep. Everything is reauthentication. Everything is reauthorization. And of course, that means that all of your SSO is, single point of failure.
Correct.
Crap. It's still a problem. Okay. But you're right. And it's a refinement of that.
SSO with MFA, your 2 points of failure, and we've already figured out how to hack the SMS
MFA fatigue.
the SMS MFA. Anyways, so yes.
Oh, SMS MFA is just worthless. Anyway.
Yeah, but now you have CISOs literally figuring out the risk profile of their different MFA technologies because one is so susceptible to attack that they can't even consider it as a valid MFA component anymore. So now they're all switching. Like, this is stuff that everybody's trying to figure out now. Thank you, Twilio.
What's the RFC for MFA by Avian Carrier? I don't know.
I think it's a good place to be though, because it really is reinforcing that this security journey. Like, even with zero trust, we have to iterate on this over and over. Like, as a hacker, we're sitting here iterating on ways to break everything that you're coming up with. So that means that you have to continually iterate on ways to continually protect, get creative, reaffirm, retest, reevaluate, all the things that we should be doing as good security anyway. I think it just reinforces that as we move forward.
Yes. And while we're on this topic, Let's see. The White House releases software supply chain security guidance. Actually, they didn't. They just basically told NIST to build the guidance and everybody should follow it. But I don't think the guidance actually exists still. Anyone?
Supply chain is a very, very awkward topic. It's I've been studying this now for some time, and it is an awkward topic because nobody can agree. Oh, SolarWinds, that was a supply chain attack. Okay, cool. But how about when the container ship full of raw materials? Is that a supply chain attack?
Well, this is software supply chain. So they're only caring about the SBOM right now, right? I guess.
Yes, but. Yes, but. It's agreed about the software supply chain, and that is all about SBOMs. But it's also about the supply chain attacks like SolarWinds, Orion, like Kaseya, like.
Right.
How many now? Tyler, what are we up to? 50, 100? I don't even know.
A lot. That doesn't even include some of the hardware things and firmware. The F-bomb is coming, don't worry.
Yep. Firmware bill of materials. Yep. It's coming.
Firmware.
I love that acronym. That's an awesome one.
Me too. That's an Eclipsium one, but yeah, it's fantastic.
F-bomb.
Well, NIST has 800-161, which is their officially titled Cybersecurity Supply Chain Risk Management Practices for Systems and Organizations. So that got a bit of a bounce, an update in May. So there's something there. But it really comes down to creating. Well, SBOM as a concept is great, or FBOM or whatever. But A, how do you create the things in a repeatable way, and then B, what do you do with it once you got it? So everyone's talking about SBOM, but they're not talking about what How do you
then what?
What do you do with that? Yeah.
Well, John, you and I used to have this conversation at Layered Insight. Like, how do you tie all these elements together when a new vulnerability comes out? Then you go and you tie that into your software bill of materials to see which components of your software potentially now need to go get updated. Like, you're right. We're just talking about the one piece, like have the bill of materials, not even thinking about how all the different threats and vulnerabilities tie into that for you to actually know where your blast radius is. Now that's the new term. Right now I got a human blast radius discussion going internally at Living Security, because it's like, how do you understand the potential impact when this happens? That means I have to tie all these different data elements together. It's not just about creating the first one, it's creating the entire system to analyze it.
Yeah.
So in one sense, in the last couple of articles, we've talked about zero trust, where we're isolating components, right, of your enterprise, and supply chain, where we're linking them all together in a workflow or a grid or whatever you want to call it. And it's fascinating that as we're isolating things, we're also trying to connect them back together.
Yes.
I know I'm bastardizing John.
I'm running with it. I think it is. I will concur with your bastardization. And that's with modern software. Everything is becoming this sort of modern software is a bastardization. And then the question is, how do you keep those? Excuse me, I'm running with this, bastards separate from each other.
Rock and roll.
But yeah, pardon my French, everyone.
No, it's a fascinating topic, because as we componentize software, as software becomes Legos, okay, so that's why we need a software bill of materials, right? It's not that Tyler wrote 30,000 lines of code. It's that Tyler took 17 5,000 line libraries and glued them all together, and so that's why we need a software bill of materials. And yet that set of code is running an application or a system or a framework or whatever that we need to put authorization, authentication, accountability, and identity around, okay? Or actually, identity is often its own little world. And then we need to figure out what goes into that component, what comes out of that component, how do we secure those lines? I just found out today that there's now a suricata for inside of a Kubernetes container set, set of containers, orchestrated set of containers. So you can now do IDS inside of your orchestrated set of containers. So now we're doing inter-container IDS.
No, thank you.
Like, this is crazy.
I tried that. No, thank you.
No, we definitely tried that. No, thanks. And we did it.
No, actually, it's been released in test mode today.
John, I have to say this.
Aventura?
No. I heard the term Docker and Docker again.
Oh, geez.
In one of our engineering discussions last week. I was like, no. Nightmares.
Yeah.
See, folks, this is what happens when John and I get together. Look out.
trigger me on that again.
Oh my gosh.
And just to bring that back, we didn't just talk about a zero trust and this SBOM, and you mentioned, Josh, the identification. You said it was a separate piece, but don't forget we've already talked about LinkedIn as well, so that's going to authenticate all this.
Right, automatically. With MFA, but an SMS-based MFA. So we just tied the first 3 articles all together in a pretty bow. You're welcome, everyone. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Cybersecurity executive communication and metrics. I really, we're going through our Q4 OKRs, objectives, and key results. And every time we go through this exercise, whether it's SMART goals or OKRs, I get reminded of some of the items that are in this article. Yes, they're great for communication and measuring the company and all this other stuff, but it's a good reminder that we have to think about, it's about outcome. I got reminded about this last week when we were working through our OKRs. Like, when you're communicating, when you're doing these metrics, think about the outcome, right? Because it is outcome based. I think this is when I think about the trap that most cybersecurity companies fall into, we think about the speeds and the feeds and the data and the ML and the AI and the this and the that. What's the outcome? What do I do with that data, right? It's such an important component to remember is, yes, I got all this great data and I put it all in this pretty little interface, but what am I going to do with it? Remember, cybersecurity is a decision support system. We have to support decisions and outcomes of those decisions. So,
Matt, if I don't use buzzwords like AIML, how will anybody think that I'm worth my budget? Come on.
I know.
But I'll keep going.
No, I'm good. I'm off my soapbox.
Go ahead, John.
This is an interesting article. As long as you don't look at it too closely, the amount of typos in it for a communication article is impressive. But so where it sort of clicked with me, I'm currently reading Working Backwards, a story from Breyer and Carr about Amazon and how they do what they do, and talking about their PR facts. And in this case, what's reminded me of what they frequently think of when they're working on a project is what are the inputs and what are the outputs. And this is sort of that same type of thing, right? Of you're not just doing some of these things for the hell of it, but you can. And one of their key phrases in that company, in any company, you're able to adjust your inputs, but the outputs are sort of the result of it. So you can't, if you try to adjust the outputs, you're doing it wrong. It's what do you change in the beginning to actually get that to come out the way you need it to? So I think it's good to think about. It's a little more focus, at least from me. But I think there's a lot of different things thrown in here as well, maybe. So probably if you're a CISO or anyone, pick a few things out from here and then just focus on those, I'd guess. I don't know. I don't think you're doing all of this, Matt.
No, can't. Yeah. No. It's too much. This article goes on. It pulls in too many elements for me. I think there's some of those key things at the beginning around think about purpose and outcome is very important in communication. I think, keep things, simple and measurable and achievable and, scope, I think is important here, right? Like I said, we've got our CISO advisory board later this week and I'm preparing slides and I'm thinking, okay, my audience is the CISO audience, right? Be succinct, be to the point. What do you want to hear back from this group of CISOs, right?
Give them a questionnaire.
Or let me put 30 slides together. No, right? You want to understand your audience and what answers do you want to get out of them? And how do you give them what they need to give you that answer back? Because this is a captive audience only for a few hours. And we have a lot to cover, right? So I'm thinking about this. And this article kind of helped me think about, okay, well, what's the purpose of this meeting? And what do I want out of this audience when I sit down and meet with them on Wednesday down in Austin, right? I know that. Now I got to put together the material I need to support that purpose. So
this is almost a pick your one or two because depending on how big you are and what your area of influence is, that really determines what you're able to leverage out of this. And then not prioritizing those, again, that comes back to every CISO's job is prioritizing what is important and getting those first things done right.
Yep, exactly right. This article, tips for developing cybersecurity leadership talent. This is my tie-in article from the previous segment. I mean, obviously, we know the challenges with the workforce, finding the talent, hiring the talent. You know, Chuck came on and talked about programs we're doing down at K-12. But as he said, it doesn't that thing doesn't solve today's problems, right? It starts to bring more people with more skill sets in to our industry over time, but I still have to go get talent today, right? I still got to go find this talent. And one of the first recommendations, we talked a lot about this, is, you know, identifying and fostering internal security talent. Like, where are they? Where are those folks in the organization that have an aptitude and an attitude towards cybersecurity? How do you use security champions programs, which is mentioned in this article? How do you leverage them as BISOs, you know, business information security officers, to get them involved? Like, how do you find that talent internally and bring them into the cybersecurity family? I think it's such an important topic still to this day that organizations have to deal with. That, you know, good ideas always help. I think organizations find better ways to go find talent.
I think it's still a hard problem though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
yes.
you still have to find people that are interested. You still have to find the aptitude and background. You still have to bring people up into that, whether or not they have the capability and acumen to do it, and whether or not they have the interest. Like, we're still at this gap where we have these 20-year-old veterans, and we've got maybe them and a couple of the Gen Xers that are interested in the actual tech, not just the cool, flashy stuff, and they actually want to put the work in. Now we've got that huge gap where we've got a whole bunch of seniors, no juniors, no time to mentor because of the workload. That problem is not going to go away simply by pulling people out of other areas. That's a time gap that we can't shortcut.
Yeah.
We have to find good ways to shortcut that in a little bit, but that also means we have to do some of that mentoring, and that's going to be a lot of the companies and the enterprises putting that investment in.
Yep.
and finding ways to facilitate time and mentorship, and understand it's a long game. You're not going to do this in a year. You're not going to do this in 2 years.
Yeah.
You may be able to facilitate some of this mentorship in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, how many of the people that we know are mentoring people on the side? I can't even tell you how many people I advise.
And failing at.
A lot of it, yes. But I mean, realistically, the other problem is that a lot of the time mentorship fails not because of the mentor, but of the mentee. I mean, when I used to teach college, my metric of whether it was a good class was whether I had anybody that was actually going to do the work. Okay. When you're teaching at the undergraduate level, if you have, out of a class of 20, if you have 2 or 3 of them that are actually like, ooh, this is interesting. Let's do the projects correctly, and not just like, whatever. You win, at the graduate level, it's a lot better, of course. It's like a filter. But a lot of people, like, I mean, years ago, I got told, I want to be just like you. I'm like, all right, why? Well, you're an executive at a cybersecurity company. You're making millions of dollars and you're so amazingly successful. And I'm like, yeah, you have a lot to learn. Anyway.
Good luck.
Yes, good luck. First thing I did when I went to Living Security, I said, all right, I am here to mentor you. You build your plan. Like, what do you want? All right. Training. When Jim Routh came on, he said, nobody wants to be retained. They want to be developed. Right. So as a manager, I start thinking about development. What does my team want? What skill sets do they want to learn? What training or mentorship can I do to help them? And if they want help, I'm helping them all day long. I'll go find the budgets to get them trained. That's my job as a leader, right? But you're right. Sometimes the person who wants to be mentored doesn't actually step up and want to do the work. There's nothing you can do about that in that particular case. So, yeah. We're running. Go ahead.
Really briefly on that. I mean, so I've been on a kick recently. If I can keep someone in a company and not have to worry about bringing someone in from outside, I already got someone who I know they fit the culture. I know they like what's going on, and that they're already in the place. So I would hope an internal mentee, or what's the other phrase you're using here? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I would hope for that type of person that they're going to be interested, right? I'm not identifying just someone saying, okay, Tyler, we're going to have you start working on window washing. I'm going to mentor you on that, right? It's going to be, we see a fit, and hopefully those two people, there's an agreement there of let's go in this direction. And hopefully once at that place, he's going to be very enthusiastic to learn how to wash those windows better. But I don't know. I like the idea. I'd much rather, we were talking this morning on ASW, I'd much rather, grow someone and improve someone who's there in the company. You can actually say it's a security thing, right? From the point of view of, if I have people leaving the company because I was talking about if your development process is slow, if it takes a while to do a deployment or things like that, that nowadays is a reason for someone to go work at another company. So that's not just losing that resource, that's actually making my company less secure. So there's a bit of that in there as well with this, I think, too. So hopefully it works out overall, but I love the idea.
But you want initiative. Yeah. It's the initiative piece, right? I want them to take initiative because that means they're vested in their future as well. And as a manager, that's what you want, right? I want them to show the initiative. You go figure out how to get the funding, and that allows them to continue to grow and move up through the organization, for sure. Yep. We're getting a little tight on time. 4 tactics that backfire when dealing with a difficult colleague.
Matt, you're not that difficult. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. But don't suppress your emotions. I mean, come on.
I've worked for a long time on controlling my Tourette's.
Controlling it. Dude, that is the best coping mechanism ever. Close the door. Son of a...
There's some good pointers in there for anybody who wants to learn. I want to thank my co-hosts, all 3 of you, for joining me today. Thanks for stepping up. I know Jason was out. Ben's been traveling like a madman. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. We'll see you next week on Business Security Weekly.